my YouTube channel. My name is Onose Ogbebo and I am a Nigerian currently studying my Masters in Law at the University College London. And I have given that introduction because of what we'll be talking about today, which is writing personal statements for a master's program in the UK. So I'm going to be giving you tips and tricks, especially if you still want to apply at this time of the year. So let's get into it. First point, do not panic, calm down. If you want to do your master's in the next academic year and you're thinking it's a bit too late to apply, well, it's not. You'll find that there are still universities open and then you can make applications to those universities. So it was around this time last year when the pandemic hit that I realized that I wanted to do a master's in law the next academic year. And the universities that I wanted to go to, some of them had already closed their applications, some as early as in November. So I first had to research the universities that were still open, pick my first choices, my first choice, my second choice, third choice and fourth choice, look at the deadlines and then plan accordingly so I could make applications. And that is the first step. If you want to apply now, do your research. What are the universities you're interested in? Check if the applications are still open for the course that you want to do, and then think about writing those deadlines down and thinking about how you start planning your applications within those time windows. So that is the very first step. I would say that the only downside to this might be that you may have missed out on scholarship applications that close really early on. So some scholarship applications will close in maybe January or February or even March. You may have missed out on those, but that's not the end. You'll still find that there are many scholarships open up until June, I believe. So you have to get on it as soon as possible. And yeah, you might still find scholarship applications that you're eligible for if that's something you're interested in. So for me, when I was applying, I wanted to go to a London uni, and I looked, the only London universities that were still open was UCL and Queen Mary University of London. So those were my two top choices, and then University of Birmingham and University of Leicester, where I was completing my LLB at the time. So once that is done, write the deadlines for the applications, because you want to make sure you get it in earlier than the deadlines. So write down the deadlines and start preparing your applications. Second point is research. So do your research in the university that you're applying for, especially if you're applying for a master's program. The thing is, they want to see that your application is specific, is focused to that particular university and shows your interest in that course. So one thing you want to do is do your research into the universities that you have narrowed down in your list. You could easily start from your first option because it might be easier then. So things that you should research into when you're looking at the university. You can look at the university rankings if that's something you're concerned about. So in the UK universities or everywhere, universities are ranked, and there are different publications that do rankings. So there's the Times, I believe there's the Guardian, I know that there's the World Ranking. So there are different rankings. So you can look at that, see where the university you want to go is ranked, if that's something that you care about, and look at also the ranking for that course. So for instance, when I was applying to UCL was ranked one of the top 2 law schools for law. Yeah, top 2 law schools rather. So it was ranked one of the top 15 universities in the world and top 2 in law in the United Kingdom. And that was really cool to see, and those are some of the things you may want to mention in your application, in your personal statement if it's appropriate. So do your research, do the research into the rankings. The location is so important, especially if you want to be studying in a place where in a nice city. For instance, I wanted to study in London, so when I was researching, I watched videos on Queen Mary University of London and saw that the campus was close to a cemetery or graveyard, or there's a graveyard in the middle of the campus, something like that. And I was like, nope. There was a graveyard opposite my school at University of Leicester, and I was like, yeah, probably not, especially if Queen Mary, they have their accommodations within the university, if I'm correct, and especially if your accommodation is going to be in there. You don't want to be looking at cemeteries. So it wasn't a big deal for me, but it's just one thing that I found in research. So research also the modules that will be taught on the course you're interested in. Do you see any modules that you could potentially do, any modules you like? If the modules are not modules that you want to study, then you could look at another university. So that's another thing for me. So I looked at modules, there were sort of modules I wanted to study at universities that I picked, and that was also an encouragement. So look also as well at the faculty, look at their website. What does it say about the lecturers, about publications, what students have gone on to do, the sort of extracurricular activities they have. Those things are important as well, especially if you want to like build your experience and have, build your experience here and have a full all-round university experience, or if you want to build your skills, however. So yeah, those are things that you should look out for when you're researching as well. Then availability of accommodations. If you're coming new to the UK, maybe you haven't studied in the UK before, or you're going to a new city, you want to stay in a place where you feel is accessible, or nearby campus, so you don't have to walk long distances in the cold. Now this is assuming that you're going to be studying a post-pandemic world where you go to actual classes and you go to in-person classes. So that's something you want to search out as well. The city, do you like the city? You want to move to London. Is that a place you can see yourself living in? The neighborhood. So when I was doing my research for my master's, I watched in someone's YouTube video that in the area where Queen Mary University was located, around that area, muggings happen a lot, and in general in London. So when I moved to London, I always made sure that I held my phone really close if I'm holding my phone out and I'm walking, or I keep it really safe in my bag. So things like that. What is the city like? Is it like an intercontinental city, different sorts of people? What is like the nightlife like, the social life like? If those are things that you're interested in, then you should definitely do that in your research, so you just don't waste your time applying to a university you don't want to go to. So those were the sort of things that I researched as I was preparing to apply to universities in London. And then Leicester, I didn't have to do that because I'd already lived in Leicester, so I knew about like the city and stuff, and about the university. But if you're applying to completely new universities, this information will come in handy. Then what else will I say about that? Yeah, specialism. So if you're applying for a master's and you want to do a specialism, then one thing that you can check is check to see that the specialisms that are available are sort of specialisms you want to do, or there's an option to do like a general master's in law or a specialist master's in law, options like that. If you're keen on doing like a 2 years master's with 1 year abroad, look for that as well. I think that was one of the cool things I found about Queen Mary, I believe. So they had like a 2-year program where you do part in France and part in England, and that was something that I was really keen on. Something, it looked very interesting. Then check out, like I said, faculty members, so who could be your potential lecturers, and just things like that, because it would help you when you're writing your personal statement. You will have like a full picture, and you can write a well-informed personal statement that is tailored to that university. And if you're wondering, why do I need to research all these things? Well, check out my next video where I talk about writing, where I read out my personal statement, and you will see how I incorporated some of this research in my personal statement for UCL. Then another thing that I would say you should research as well is, what is the faculty proud of, or what is the university proud of, what are their proud achievements. Check out what it is that is top of their website. When you go there, they say this about themselves. For UCL, I realized one of the things that they said a lot about themselves, so Faculty of Laws, was they're looking for critical minds, people that will analyze the law, not just learn the law, but analyze it, critique arguments, formulate new arguments of how the law can be better. It was something that I saw a lot in the YouTube videos, on the website, in the requirements for application. And so that was something that I made sure to display in my application. Another thing that you should definitely research, and this will probably be the most important and a very obvious point, is the requirements for the application. So for the master's program you're applying to, what do they require? You don't want to spend time drafting applications for a school that requires at least a first class or a near first class, and then you have a third class. So you may know that, okay, that's not the proper university to apply to, or my chances may be slimmer. So you have to look at those requirements. Some will say personal statements not more than 2 pages. Some will say personal statements not more than 1,000 words. So you want to check those requirements so you can make sure that you meet the requirements and you stand a really good chance of getting into the university. Then check also for personal statement. What do they want to see in the personal statement? And I would praise UCL for this. It was very comprehensive on their website, what they wanted to see in the personal statement for the law program. So I'd written them out like bullet points. So when I was writing my personal statement, I would go and check, oh, is this represented there? Did I write this? Does my personal statement reflect this? So things like, why do you want to study that course? Why that particular university? How it will help your career ambitions or your further academic pursuits. What skills are you bringing to the table to help you on this course, or what skills do you want to gain? So I remember when I was doing my research, I watched a lot of YouTube videos as well as looking through websites of these law schools. And for the YouTube videos, I had seen one, or for one of the schools I was applying to, the dean was speaking about, or the vice dean, how you know that there's going to be so much workload on the course and you need to show resilience. You need to show that you have grit and stamina for it, because it's not an easy thing. And best believe, boy, masters is no walk in the park. So those are things that you want to look out for. So when you're writing your personal statement, you incorporate it. You can evidence skills of I have stamina to go through much workload, or I have a critical mind, or I am keen on learning and developing my critical mind. So make sure please that you check out the requirements for the school you're applying to and for that particular course. For instance, if you're an international student, some schools will say that you should provide like a transcript, and if it's not in English language, a translation certified or signed by so and so, or your transcript should be this way or that way, whether they want a personal transcript or an official transcript, things like that. So just to make sure you know the requirements, so your chances are higher when you write your personal statement and make your applications. Well, that was long-winded. On to the third point. So the third thing now is about yourself. Having gotten the deadlines, choosing your universities that you want to apply to, and you have researched the university. Now it's time for some soul searching. So think about it. Why do you want to study that course? What is your motivation? What do you want to gain out of studying the course? What modules are you potentially interested in? What would this course do for your academic pursuits or your career plans? How does it fit into the big picture of where you're going or where you've come from? So those are things that you have to do soul searching from within. What skills can you bring to the table, or what experiences? What can you contribute to that community? Yes, that's basically about it. What sort of extracurricular activities have you seen that you may be interested in? And so just to make it relatable, I remember when I was applying to for my master's and UCL was my top choice, I already knew from the websites the extracurricular activities that I wanted to get involved in, because I had some friends that were doing the masters before I applied. So I spoke to them and I looked through the website. I was really looking through the courses that I might potentially take. Now, you may write all these things in your personal statement, but no one will hold you to it. You can get to UCL and completely change your mind, or get to whatever university and completely change your mind. That's fine. But when you evidence those things in your application, it shows that you've thought about it. It shows that you've not just made generic applications, but you know what the university does, what the faculty does. You know the potential courses you might be taking. You know the extracurricular activities that have caught your attention. So the person reading your personal statement or looking through your application sees that keenness, sees that initiative, sees that willingness to want to study at their university, and that goes a long way. So so look at your motivations from within. If you want to see an example of how I exemplified this, or an example of how I reflected this, check out my next video, like I've said. So for me, I wrote about where I wanted to go, my career pursuits, and how studying in London and studying in UCL fitted into that. I spoke about some of the professors that had read their profiles, that were world-leading researchers and practitioners, and I was like, I want to learn from these people because of my short-term goal of this and my longer-term goal of this, and being at the heart of London will help me with this and that. I spoke about the skills that I had gained, living, working, and studying abroad, and how that I could bring that to the course, how I had the stamina for the course, and I had the critical mind and was keen on developing that a bit more. So the way it was written, it was so tailored to those universities that I was like, okay, yes, we're sold on this girl, sort of thing. Then on to the fourth point, and we'll be rounding up soon, is pull all that information together, mix it all up in a bowl, and produce a fantastic personal statement. This is the point where I say, just do it. After doing all this research, doing soul searching, writing down the things you want to talk about in your personal statement, make a first draft. Just do it. I know it's always the hardest before you start, but believe me, when you start writing it, it's going to go smoother. So put those information together and produce your first draft of personal statement. You can want to start by keeping it simple and saying, I'm writing this, or I'm writing to apply for this course, or I want to study this. Or you could go the other way by doing like an intro, like a eye-catching intro. So that was something that I did. So I started my personal statement sort of like telling a story of saying that, with the introductory paragraph as well, that from where I come from, I have seen that this doesn't always amount to this, and this is why I want to study this, to build this skill and do this. And then I went and I told the story from where I'd come from to where I was in my academic journey, and where I wanted to go to, and how this course will propel me to get there, the skills I could bring as well, and why that university. So all these things, you would have done them in your research and soul searching. Just make a draft. Now, one thing that helped me when I was writing was I watched a lot of YouTube videos, tons of them, like you're doing now. And then I also went to read drafts of people's personal statements, and you can easily find some of these things online. But another thing that I also did as well was, listen to people read out their statements on YouTube, or watch or have like my friends read out their personal statements to me, people that had applied before. So I used that to sort of get my juices flowing, to get ideas of how to structure my personal statement. So for structure, I would say keep it simple. Introduction, a little bit about yourself, your story, how you've gotten to your academic point where you are. Then how the module or how the course you want to study will help you propel to the goals that you want to achieve. Keep it realistic, not that, since I was a child, I always wanted to be a lawyer. That wouldn't sell than you telling us how. So I started from my first degree, and then my second degree in the UK, and then how this third degree will take me further where I wanted to go. Things like that. Then a little bit about the university, gas the university up. Why them? Why not any other school in London? Why not any other school in the UK? What is it about them that motivates you to want to study at that university? And then a bit about the course you want to study. Tell them that, let them know you're interested. What is it about the course that will help you in your career path? What sort of modules are you looking forward to? So for mine, when I talked about modules, I related it to experiences I had. So for instance, I wanted to take the module in arbitration. Then I talked about my previous experiences in arbitration. And then another module on like financial markets, or was it financial system and corporate governance. And then I talked about also, earlier on when I had done an internship in that area as well. So it just sort of evidenced my interest. And like I said, no one will hold you to it. So put all of that together and then have your concluding paragraph where you tie it all in. For my concluding paragraph, I talked about studying in the heart of London and working in the bright open spaces of Bentham House at UCL, Faculty of Laws. And that's that. Next step, fifth step. After writing your first draft and reviewing it, send it out to people for a second opinion. So you've written it, you may be blind to the errors that you may have made, but if you send it out to someone to look at it, then it would be really good to help you get insights if there's something you can do better or not. So I remember when I was writing my personal statements to the universities I applied to, I was still at University of Leicester. So I sent out my personal statements to the career department 3 times for review. I sent it in the first time, they said, it was alright, it was good, we spoke about it. I took some time out, looked at it again. I made a second draft and I sent it out again. And after the third time, it was all positive feedback. Then I knew, okay, I could send it off. sent it also to friends because I'm a bit extra and I really wanted to get into the schools I applied to. So I sent it over to friends. They caught all the little errors, grammatical errors, things that could have been put phrased better, did all of that, made sure that it was 2 pages, it met the requirement, had a final draft, read through it, and then I sent it with the rest of my application. So make sure you do a second draft, and you could do a second draft in a different document so you can compare the two and see which one is best. Make sure that you've checked and you've adhered to all the requirements for the personal statement. If there's a style, a font style or size that they want, if there are page numbers or page limits or word limits, make sure that you have checked everything to the T before you send out your personal statement. Then last thing I want to talk about is other parts of the application. By the time you're making your application, have your references ready or speak to the people who are going to write your references. It's easier if you have like lecturers you have a good relationship with, or the academic staff or whoever that is allowed to write a reference. Start speaking to them during the point where you're preparing to write your application so that the references come in time. Because sometimes you may submit your application, the deadline is approaching and your references haven't come in yet. But if you tell the people that write your references early on, then it really helps. So for mine, I remember that I had written my application, sent it off, and they had asked for reference. One of my referees sent his reference in like the next day, but then I had to be chasing my personal tutor because she had a lot going on in that season, and then she eventually sent it, but in the nick of time. So you want to make sure your references, you've spoken to your referees, and that's ready on time. So once you send in your application, they can send in the reference. Or if you have the option of sending it yourself, then speak to them earlier on so they write it and send to you. And then another thing is check if the university is asking for a CV. So some ask for CVs optional, some it might be required. Put your CV in order. Check the UK style. How is it that it's acceptable, like the acceptable CV style for the UK? Just, it's not a big deal, but it helps. Make sure that your experiences are up to date. The latest experiences are relevant to the course you're applying for. Make it as academic as possible, in that if you're putting a CV, highlight your academic achievement, things you've done. So I put things of like when I was tutoring, my academic awards of excellence, things like that. So it seems academic as well as shows your experience. Make sure it's between a paid limit. Shouldn't be going more than 2 pages typically for your CV. And then also make sure you fill in the application details correctly. I need not tell you this, but yeah, those are all the steps and points that I have for writing a personal statement and preparing an application for masters. Yeah, if you want to hear more or hear me read my personal statement rather that I wrote to UCL, then do check in the next video. And finally, one thing that I would say is that you can have one personal statement template and just tailor it for each application, so you don't have to be writing from scratch. So have a set template from the first one you write, and make sure you tailor every section, every paragraph to suit the other universities you're applying to. It will save you time of writing every application from scratch. Well, I hope that these tips have been helpful. If you have any more tips or suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. If you really like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you like the video, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, share with your friends who are thinking about applying for masters and who need some tips, and then please do subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you in my next. Bye.